Welcome everyone, Eran Stern here for Stern Effects, and in this tutorial I'll show you how to use Element 3D in After Effects to create a short teaser like the one you just saw a moment ago. So this movie is part of a series called 3D in After Effects, where I will demonstrate how to use different 3D tools, including third-party plugins, to achieve more or less the same brief. I also plan to expand it and show other cool tools for the 3D design space of After Effects that received a lot of love in the recent years and will continue to grow in the near future. In other words, please subscribe to this channel to make sure you'll get the full story and see few different ways to integrate 3D into your After Effects workflow. But as I mentioned in the upcoming tutorials, I'll use the same concept to create teasers for the Adobe Video World Tour that will take place in few famous cities, starting with Atlanta in the North USA. So depending on when you are seeing this video, you may be able to join us over there. More details in the description, of course. Anyway, this video is all about my favorite plugin, which is Element from Video Copilot, and how to integrate it with 3D camera tracking inside After Effects and a bit of Cinema 4D. Now, it's probably going to be a long tutorial, so there are chapters below that will help you to navigate and skip to different parts if you want to. But we are going to start with camera tracking here inside After Effects. So here we are inside After Effects, and this is the footage that we are going to use. There is a link to download it for free in the description. I'm going to show you in a few moments how I got it. But just to show you what I already cooked ahead of time, I'll switch on the visibility for the Atlanta live text. For what it's worth, I'm using the Futura condensed book font, and I'm going to switch it off and also show you that there is an Adobe Video World logo in a form of a shape layer over here. Both layers, actually everything here is still a 2D layer. All right, so let's start with solving the camera for this shot. So what I did in this case is downloaded the 4K, the Ultra HD version, and then I pre-composed it and placed it inside this composition. This seems to work in my case, but you are more than welcome to go your own way. So to this HD comp or composition, I'm going to apply under animation the 3D camera tracking effect by selecting track camera from the animation menu. And this is going to apply the 3D camera tracker. So this is a background operation, so you can do whatever you want in this project, assuming you're not going to close it. And while After Effects is thinking about it, I'm just going to switch to my browser and show you where I got this footage. So this is from pexels.com by Kelly. This is the clip. I'm just going to play it to you from the beginning until the end. If you want to follow along, you can use this free download option. And I recommend to download this 4K Ultra HD. And there is a method to my madness. Although we are using the full HD, we can actually use some more pixels when we need to create an environment from this. So it's going to be a little bit of a cheat, but trust me, you should go with the Ultra HD if possible. All right, let's come back to After Effects. In the meantime, After Effects already finished to track this shot. And before I'll move further, the first thing I always do after running the 3D camera tracker is open up the advanced option and check the average error. And you can see that in my case, it is 0.32 pixels, which is very good. So anything under 1 or maybe 1.5 should be considered a good tracking. If you have something different over here, if you want to try to improve your results, you are more than welcome to try the detailed analysis. But in our case, it is actually working quite nice. And I can also scrub the timeline to show you all those 2D markers that we are going to convert to 3D coordinates right now. So I'm going to hover over here on top of this building, and I'll click just to set my first target. I'm going to move it to the middle of the building, and I'm going to right click on it. Now, usually the first step is to set ground plane and origin. But in this case, I'm not going to use it because it's not necessary. I'm going to show you how to do it in other tutorials. For now, I'm just going to create null and camera. That's it. So I've got a 3D null over here that is being tracked to the building. And obviously I've got the 3D tracker camera, which was generated by the effect. And everything from this point onward is going to use the 3D camera animation. But first, let's just marry the Adobe Video World logo to this plane. So I'll make sure to turn it on. And by the way, if you are working with me and you don't have access to this logo, you can use any logo you want, even your own logo. See how generous I am? Anyhow, I'll make sure this is the 3D layer. And now I'll hold down the Shift key, use the parent and link peak whip, and point it to the track null 1 that I've just created. And this is going to place it in the same 0, 0, 0 coordinates of this track null. And I know you don't believe me, we just met, so I'm going to press P and show you that the position for this layer is 0, 0, 0. I told you. Now, it's a little bit difficult to see what we have here because After Effects is hiding it with this 3D gizmo. So I'll go to the View menu, and momentarily I'm going to switch off the layer controls. There is a keyboard shortcut that I'm going to use from now onward, Command-Shift-H here on the Mac, Control-Shift-H on the Windows side. This is just going to show us what we want to see without any abstractions. All right, I'll press Shift-S, and this is going to also show the scale. And I'll scale it, let's say, to 500%. I'm also going to press Shift-R, so I can see the orientation and rotation. And I'll play with the Z orientation or Z just a tiny bit. And if I want more control, I can hold the Command or Control key, which is going to divide my mouse movement by 10. So something like this looks like it is working. And I'm also going to select the layer, switch the blending mode to screen. Let's just drill it up, close everything and press spacebar to preview the result, which looks great and it was very easy to achieve. But it doesn't have anything to do with the promise of this video, Element 3D. All right, so now let's use Element 3D to bring 3D titles on screen as well as integrate 3D objects. All right, so what we need for Element 3D, of course, after installing it, is a new solid. Make sure nothing is selected and then go to Layer New Solid. Also, there is this very famous keyboard shortcut of Command or Control Y. I'm going to name mine Element because after all, this is the official name of the plugin, not Element 3D, just Element. I'll make sure it is set to comp size, click OK. It will create it above all the layers because nothing was selected. And then I'll go to Effect. And in my case, at the bottom of the list, I'm going to choose Video Copilot Element. First, I'll open up the custom layers over here, twirl down the custom text and masks. And for path layer 1, I'll set it to use the text layer over here. In my case, Atlanta or layer number 5. And then I'll close it. Now, to work with Element, we actually need to click on the Scene Setup. If you've seen it before, you already know how to work with it. If not, I'm going to give you all the information you need to complete at least this tutorial. All right, so what we need to do now is click on the word Extrude. And this is going to take this custom path 1 that we've just defined. You can see it over here and extrude it like so. Now let's give it one of the presets so it will look more nice. I'll open up the bevels and under the physical, I'm going to use one of the built-in one, which is this guy, Racing. Double click to apply it. And just to show you how easy it is, I'm going to click OK. And right now we have our 3D text already working with the 3D coordinates or vanishing point of our 3D tracker camera. And this is because Element is 3D sensitive, meaning that it is already calculating and aware of whatever camera you already have in the shot. And just to prove it, I'm going to press spacebar so we can see that the text is really in the scene. It's not exactly doing what I want, but it's already there. To help us move it, I'll select again the layer, which is the element layer. Open up group number 1. This is the group that hosts this 3D text. And then under group utilities, I'll drill down the create group null and click create. And this is going to create a null object, which is connected via expressions to this text, meaning it will help us to control it here inside the comp in a much easier fashion. I'll rename it by pressing return title so I'll know what I'm doing. And then I'll press Command-Shift-H to bring back the After Effects layer overlays. And now if I'm going to move this or maybe rotate it or take it up or down, you can see that it is controlling the text. All right, I'll undo a couple of times and then I'll press P to show the position of this null. And what I want to do is just take it a little bit back. So something like this, I guess. Numbers are not really important here because you may have something else on screen. But in my case, I just want to place this guy, let's say above the building. I'll create a keyframe for it and then I'll move to 3 seconds in my timeline and just scrub this Z value so I can move. And also let's just make sure that we are going exactly through the triangle inside the A letter. All right, now I'm going to pause here for a moment because I'm not sure if you can see this, but when I'm moving too far, we have this camera cutoff problem because the layer is probably too close to our camera. Now there is an easy fix for it inside the element. And if this happens to you, select the element layer, go to the render settings, and the last one, or almost the last one, where it says camera cutoff, is where you should find this camera near plane. You need to play with it until you are eliminating the problem. So this is what I'll do over here, and then I'll close it. And now I can keep pushing those letters, this text, until it's just going to go outside of the screen. So something like this, I think, works very nicely. Maybe I want to lower it just a touch at the beginning. I think it looks good, but I want to make it look even better by reflecting what we have over here, the environment. And this is why I have this Ultra HD copy here in the timeline. So to do this, I'll select the element layer. And first I need to define it as a custom layer. So I'll open up the custom layers. This time we want to use the second option, which is custom texture maps. I'll make sure that this is set to the pixel videos layer. This is the original 4K because we want more pixels. It's not a real HDRI image, so it's not real 360, but I think it's going to work quite nice. It's a bit of a fake, but we all love some cheats, right? All right, so let me show you how this works. I'll click on Scene Setup again to go inside the Scene Setup interface, and then I'll click on the word environment. It's actually a button, which will allow me to select an environment layer. So this is the default one. I'll switch it to custom layer 1, click OK over here, click OK over here, and already we can see that this looks much more believable. It's not the real reflection, and we need to fool our audience by changing a few of the parameters over here. And you can do it under the render settings of the element effect. So I'll open up, I'll expand the physical environment. First, I'll change the exposure here. Let's just make it a bit more brighter. Something like this should work. And you can also rotate it. So I'll click and hold on the Y rotation just to choose something else, so we won't see the same buildings. Now I know that in reality, in front of these downtown buildings, there is actually some grass and different stuff, but I'm going to assume that most of our viewers don't know or don't care, and this is why I'm going to just choose a different portion. And I'm also playing with the X rotation just to make sure that I'm keeping the same horizon line. So something like this, I think, works quite nice. And once it's moving, you can hardly know that this is not the real deal, the real reflection. I really dig this. I think it looks great. And I also think that we are now ready to the next stage, which is integrating a 3D model with animation. So I'm not sure if you know it, but apparently Atlanta's symbol is a phoenix. It represents the city literally rising from the ashes, which happens after General Sherman burned it down during the Civil War. Only 400 buildings survived. So we have much more than 400 buildings now, but let's find a free phoenix, preferably animated bird. And to do so, you can use the link in the description. I already opened it over here. This is the sketchfab.com website. You need to create your own user in order to download some free models. And this bird, this animated bird, is the one that we are going to use. Now, I'm going to show you how to convert it to something that Element 3D can understand using Cinema 4D. But if you don't have access to Cinema 4D, you can do the same thing using the free Blender 3D application. But first, we need to download the model. So let's just click on Download 3D Model. And I'm going to use the original format, the FBX. I'll click Download. I'll point it to my favorite place in the world, which is the desktop. And then we can use it. So I'll close this. I'll click on this zip to expand it. And then I'll switch to Cinema 4D, which is already running in the background on my machine. I'll go to File, Open Project. I'll navigate to my desktop. And over here, we have this thing that we just downloaded. So under the source option, we have this fly.fbx. I'll click Open and I'll accept the defaults. I'm just going to click OK. It won't look like much in this case. We have a couple of missing textures that we need to reassign. I'm not going to do it over here. I'm going to show you how to attach them inside Element 3D in a moment. But for now, all I want you to do is go to the File menu and under Export, here in Cinema 4D, you need to choose this option, Wavefront OBJ. Click on this cogwheel to make sure that you can see the OBJ export settings, and then make sure that you enable all frames under animation. This is very important. By default, it will say no animation, so make sure all frames selected. The similar thing can be achieved using Blender. I'm not going to show it to you because, to be honest, I'm not using Blender. But I know for a fact that this can be easily achieved over there as well. I'll click OK, and then I'll step one level up. Over here, I'll create a new folder. I'm going to name it OBJ. Click Create, and I'm just going to name this one Phoenix, and click Save. It will take a few moments for Cinema 4D to complete this. And now we can return to After Effects and launch the scene setup again inside Element 3D. So we are going to use the same layer to create this. I'll click on Scene Setup. And before I'll do anything, I'm just going to close this group folder. I'll double click on it and name it Title, just so I'll know which one is doing which function. And then I'll create a new folder. Make sure to take it outside of the title folder. Name this one, you guessed it, Phoenix. Click OK. Set this to group number 2. This is very important. So our title is group number 1. The Phoenix is going to be group number 2. And finally, I'll go to the File menu here inside the Element plugin and choose Import 3D Sequence. I'll navigate to the desktop where I have this OBJ sequence, select the first one, click Import 3D. Again, I'm going to accept the defaults, click OK, and now we can see that we have the animation. And if you want to check that this is actually working, you can scrub the start frame just to see that everything registered correctly. Now, this is the important part. We need to match the missing materials over here, as well as define few other stuff in terms of how they are looking. So I'll select the first one, and then I'll go to my scene materials, we can see that we have two missing materials here. So under texture, diffuse, I'll click where it says non-set, and then I'll use this pull-down menu to locate it or load it from file. I'll navigate to the folder of the Phoenix bird, and over here under the texture, I'll make sure I can see the entire name here. I'll select for the first material this guy, which is 01A. You can see that there's also 01B. I'm not going to read the entire name, it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to say select texture and then click OK. And then I'm going to do the same for the other one. So making sure to select it, click on diffuse, not set, click on this option, load from file. This one is the other one, which is 01B. All right, I'm going to select the texture and then click OK. I'll zoom in just so we can see this. It almost works, but we have some problems where it comes to the opacity or actually transparency. So we need to define the alpha channel here. And the way to do it is here inside the element edit attributes, scroll down all the way until you can see matte alpha, click to check it. And I'm also going to recommend to go a bit higher and play with the alpha threshold, just a touch. And this should fix it, at least for this material. I'm going to do the same for the other one. So select the material itself, make sure to check matte alpha, and also play with the alpha threshold, just a touch. All right, while we are here, I'm also going to enable the illumination by using the same color, the same diffuse map for both materials. And this is going to allow us to make this bird a bit more nicer and glowy when we are going to click OK, and we'll see it here inside After Effects. So after this very long preparation, we are ready to animate it. I'm just going to show you that this is now part of our scene, but it is completely different group because we set it, we assigned it to group number 2. As before, I want to create a group null, so I'll open up group 2, group utilities, click create to create this null, and just to help myself with this project in the future, I'm going to rename this layer. All right, so now I have an individual null that controls the Phoenix bird, which is completely separate from the previous one. I'll return to the element plugin. Let's go to the render settings just to show you what we did with the glow and how this is going to help us here. I'm going to open up the glow, enable the glow, and you can see that both of them are getting a little bit more glowiness materials just by enabling this illumination material. And I've done it now just to show you that we can control each one of the materials, because I think that the Atlanta world is a little bit too glowy. So to fix this, I'm going to hop back into the scene setup. I'll close the Phoenix, I'll select the title, I'll open up the material. I think I need to just select this layer, the glass tint, and scroll down until I see the illumination. And let's just take it to, I don't know, something around 50%. So it will glow less. Glow less. All right, now it is time to be creative. What we want to do now is to basically animate this null object so it will appear as this bird is flying just between those buildings. So what we need to do is just play with the position. I'm going to also add the scale and maybe the rotation just by pressing P, Shift S, and Shift R. All right, I'm going to start with the position. I'm going to take the Z position and drag it so it will be behind the Atlanta title, and maybe also move it something like this. You can, by the way, hold down the Shift key to move it even faster. And let's also give this bird a bit of an angle, something like this, maybe, I don't know, 20 degrees on the Y rotation. I'll record keyframes for this, and then I'll move forward over here after we are clearing in terms of the animation. from the title. I'll move my bird over here. It's not my bird. It's actually everyone's bird, specifically Atlanta's, so the phoenix bird. And I'm just going to move it closer to us. Maybe also change the orientation for the X this time. So just find something which looks a bit more interesting. I don't know, something like this I think should work. And then at the end, send it all the way back again. Now it's a bit difficult to see what we are doing. We may need to scrub those values until we'll see this bird because we are actually moving it too close to the camera. So let's just park over here and then just change the angle, something like this. And then, of course, we can take those two keyframes and move them. Now, it will look a bit weird because we are creating some sort of an arc. We may want to control it a bit more precisely, giving our viewers more time to see the bird. So I'm going to copy and paste this keyframe and then sending it a little bit back. And we can also play with the scale, by the way. So something like this. Now, if I'm going to preview it, it would look very strange. I just want to show you what I've managed to create. The beginning looks quite promising, but now it starts and then it goes back. And then it do this very, very weird number of flying outside of the screen. We can barely see where it is. Let's just see if we can spot it. Who knows where it is? Anyhow, it is a bit more challenging and difficult to control the animation. You can see over here. We actually lost track of the bird and where it is. So here is my recommendation, how to try and fix it. First, what we need to do is select the word position, make sure all the keyframes are selected by clicking on the word position, and then right-click on one of those keyframes, and then go to the keyframe interpolation option. By default, After Effects is setting our temporal interpolation to linear, but the spatial interpolation, the one in space, are being set to auto Bezier. I want to start with linear for both of them, which I think is going to give me more precise control. You can see that now, if I'm just going to, let's just go back to the element layer and momentarily switch off the visibility for group number 1, so we can actually concentrate on the bird. We can see that now we're basically stopping in the middle and then our bird is doing whatever it needs to do. But now I can say goodbye to this keyframe and also maybe to this one. I don't know, let's just leave it in place. And now, because I switch it to linear, I will have much greater control when it comes to animating it. So I'm going to just move this keyframe every time a bit more. And then I'm going to use the Z control here for the position. And the reason that I'm doing it in stages is because we have a motion in our camera. I know it looks a little bit tedious, but once you get a hold of it, it's actually quite simple. And you know, the big thing here is to just make sure to change the special keyframes to linear. This is going to help you to control the null object. This is not the most interesting part of the tutorial, but it is very important. It will help you to achieve the desired animation when it comes to this thing. Now we can push it even further into Z space, or we can cheat a bit by just scaling it. And I think this is what I'm going to do in this case. I'm going to raise it so it will be up in the sky, move it a touch. Let's scale it a bit more. Over here, we want to change the scale back to 100. And I think that this is it. It looks much better. Again, let's just preview this part. So it flies from wherever, and then it takes this route, stops a little bit, and then do whatever it needs to do. So we have this pose, and we can control the amount of time, how much it takes it to pose. But to judge, we actually need to see the entire thing in concert. So let's bring back our title. And this is what I love with Element 3D. I can just preview it almost in real time and see exactly what I'm getting. So it's not perfect, I know, but we are getting there. Now, after I'm satisfied, and there is a little bit more work to be done here, but let's call it good enough. I'm going to select the word position, hold down the Command Control on Windows and click on these keyframes. and this is going to reconvert them, at least when it comes to the linear interpolation, to a continuous Bezier, which means that the speed between every keyframe, each and every keyframe, is going to be consistent. All right, so maybe we want to just move it a touch more, I guess, to the right here. So we'll have a continuous motion. Maybe I lower it down. Let's just preview this part. I think that it is starting to look good. So what I'll do here is pause over at this section, and then I'll add a point light. Let's just add a basic point light. I'm going to accept the default. I'm not going to cast any shadows. It's going to make it much more nicer and vivid. I'll press T to show the light option intensity, and then I'll raise it to even be more brighter. Let's go with 150. And of course, you can play with the position of the light, but you can already see that it brought some light to our scene. The last thing that I want to show you under the element render section, just going to close everything, is of course the render settings. So we can change the glow intensity, and for some reason I can't see this is affecting the bird. So again, let's just visit once more the scene setup. Make sure that each one of these materials is set to illuminate. All right, I forgot the intensity. This is why. So I'm going to set it to 100 intensity for the glow material. This is the illumination quality of the material. And now it is looking the way I would like it to look. Much better, much more nicer and glowy. I'm also going to open up the ambient occlusion, enable it, maybe raise the intensity to 5. And last but not least, I'll twirl down the output. I'll set the super sampling to 2 and enhance multi-sampling to check. I'm basically going to check it. If you want, you can also enable motion blur, but this is it. We are ready to render. So I'm just going to press spacebar and let After Effects cache those frames to see how this is working. I'll maximize the screen so we can enjoy the full version, the full quality of what we've managed to create. And this is how you can use Element 3D with After Effects with a little bit of help from Cinema 4D to create this lovely teaser for Adobe Video World, which is going to take place at the beginning of December 2022 in Atlanta. Now, this is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to working with 3D objects inside After Effects. If you want to see and learn about all the tools, make sure to subscribe and also like this video if it was helpful for you. Any comments, let me know down below, and I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for watching.